I've now completed Westworld, and I know that I'm behind a bunch of other people. I wasn't able to just burn through the entire thing. I was watching it with another person, and so that made me go a little bit slower, but I have now concluded, and so I want to give you my impressions.
Do you know where you are?
I'm in a dream.
That's right, Dolores. You want to wake up from this dream?
Yes, I'm terrified.
Then answer my question correctly. Have you ever questioned the nature of your reality?
First of all, I want to start with the good. I think the most common praise that this show has gotten, and I will also give it this praise, is the acting. I thought that the acting was amazing, as good as TV acting gets. And I understand some people think that they were sort of overacting and the reliance on monologues was a bit of a problem. I didn't think either of those things were true. Whether it was the actors that I particularly enjoy, like Anthony Hopkins, the guy who played Bernard, Evan Rachel Wood, or some of the more subtle performances like Maeve, I thought that they were great. And actors who I don't care as much for, the Man in Black, I mean, he's a good actor, I'm not particularly wedded to him as an actor. I thought that they did a great job, and I don't know that there was any actor whose performances could really take you out of the show. And even other shows that I love, like Game of Thrones, which is also relatively well acted across the cast, there are people who their accents sort of drift in and out and they can't overact and it can take you out. And that's like my favorite show. So I have to give Westworld amazing credit for that. Dolores played this vulnerability and gradual awakening while questioning her reality sort of thing just perfectly. And despite the fact that she sort of had to go through the same sorts of trauma over and over cyclically, which is sort of the problem with being a robot in Westworld, I thought that it was awesome. And she had a vulnerability that was very, like, inviting and brought you in. I thought that Bernard's performance was so subtle and cerebral, and the way that he balanced when he was acting as a robot, and I hope you know that there's going to be huge spoilers in this, it was a very smooth turnover from who he was as an intellectual working on the programming side to when he was understanding and acknowledging the fact that he was not actually an authentic human. And so that was great. And then he played the big emotional scenes amazingly as well. Maeve had that cunning, I understand what's really going on, I'm one or two steps ahead of you sort of quasi-seductress, but more like behind-the-scenes mover and shaker. She did that amazingly as well. And, yeah, I mean, Anthony Hopkins, he can't really do any wrong. And there were other performances that, like Williams' performance was fine. I love that guy has a lot more range than I would have thought that he did based purely on his performances in Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So overall, he did well. I really liked, and this is sort of random maybe, I thought that Charlotte, the Delos executive, I guess the CEO or at least the head of the board, she was able to play very well sort of a CEO, but younger than you'd think and sort of mischievous and sort of enjoying the machinations. And it was a very unique sort of character that she created, and so I thought she did a great job as well. I also want to acknowledge as sort of a second point, the action in Westworld was very well done, whether it was the chases and the horse racing and stuff like that, the hand-to-hand fighting, the stabbings, the shootings, whether they were relatively intimate affairs or huge shootouts, were conducted very well. And I thought that they were shot well, edited well, beyond what you'd normally expect from action scenes like that on TV. And that goes all the way up to the big shootouts of the final episode when we finally saw Armistice and Hector sort of go crazy all over people. I thought that they did a good job in that. But beyond the shooting, the hand-to-hand sort of brutality, whether it was with bare hands or knives, was performed in a way that really emphasized the vulnerability of the human form. Whether it was a host being killed or later a human being killed, you really felt like, man, when you stab these people, it does damage. And they sold that very well. And considering that this show is sort of about, becoming aware of who you are and aware that these other sorts of creatures might deserve your compassion and empathy, that message needed to be delivered. And I think that they did a great job on it. but not everything was good. And there were parts of the show that I did not enjoy. Now, I'm going to acknowledge up front that I watched the show sort of 3 episodes at a time, scattered over the course of a couple of months. This is not the ideal way to view it. A show with as many different characters and plot threads and complexity as Westworld deserves that you sit down and binge it in as short a period of time as possible. A weekend, if you have the time. Now, I acknowledge I did not do that. But I will say this. I watch a lot of complex television shows. Television shows where there are things that you can sort of predict ahead of time, complexities and hidden motivations and clues and puzzles and all of that. And I think that I'm generally pretty good at following that stuff. But with Westworld, I found it sort of complex in a way that sort of warded me off. I enjoyed finding out what was going on. There were a couple of minor things that I predicted, but I'm not going to lie to you. I don't know how anyone predicted a couple of things that they did. Bernard being a host, I didn't predict. Bernard being based off of Arnold, I didn't predict. The William timeline thing with the Man in Black, I did not predict. I did predict that they were going to clear out the basement and all of those dead bodies were going to be part of the private army that comes back. I got that. And I get that there were clues. Like, I've read the theories and all of that. But I don't know, I felt it was overly complex. The timeline thing especially, with William and the Man in Black and the multiple timelines, I get now that there were clues that was going on. And I understand that they said when you remember these things, you remember it perfectly. And that's the big clue that should cause you to question this stuff. But I don't know that there was enough there, and so it felt almost cheap, and how little I cared about the Man in Black sort of robbed it of any of its other meaning, I guess. The Bernard thing was great. I blame myself for not realizing that, especially considering how big of a fan I was of Battlestar Galactica. An entire show about people not actually being human. Watch that show, and it still went past me that some of these people might actually not be humans, and they are, in fact, hosts. And so that is on me. And I will also say, and this is a smaller criticism because I'm a little bit torn on the ending. I don't know what that ending, what it bodes for the second season. It's very much a cliffhanger. I mean, they're right in the middle of violence, and maybe that's a good thing. But I don't know what Dolores' actions near the end, what that actually represents. Maeve getting back off the train, and maybe we're not supposed to know at this point, and I can acknowledge that. But I felt like we needed a little bit more closure on the first season, especially considering we need to wait more than a year now to see the next season. I wouldn't have finished it that way. It's good that there are some lingering mysteries. I don't know if Elsie is alive. I don't know if that security guy is alive. He was attacked by the natives inside of the park. Maybe we're not supposed to know. Maybe it'll be revealed in the second season. But I don't know, man. All the stuff with Arnold and I found it to be a little bit too complex. And I like deep shows. I like shows that merit a second watching and that generate a lot of conversation, like The Leftovers and stuff like that. But I think they went a little bit too far here. Now, random thoughts. I thought that they handled nudity very well in this show. There was nudity, but it was done in a way that sort of purposefully desexualized it and made it clinical. And I think that was interesting and not like a normal HBO show. I thought that the minor characters who probably won't be coming back, like Hector and Armistice and a couple of others, did an amazing job. Logan as well. Those actors did a great job. Hopefully this will be a stepping stone for bigger roles for them. I'm interested in Samurai World. I want to know what's going on there. Now, I did predict that there would be other worlds. Obviously, that's in the original show, so it's sort of, or movie. So that's to be expected. I get that. I really would like to know what is actually going on the surface. Are they on Earth? Maybe, maybe not. Are they thousands of years in the future? Who the hell knows? Their technology is quite advanced. Even the handguns that they used, I noticed, were very different than our normal ones. And so overall, it's a complex show that I am glad that I watched. Great performances. Glad that I was involved in it. But I don't know, man. A little bit too complex. And I would say that if the second season is as opaque, and I don't see how it could possibly be since we've lost Ford and Arnold, if it's as opaque, then I think that is going to be a problem for the show. Although they don't probably really care that much, considering that's probably going to be it, is the second season. So anyway, those are my thoughts. If you enjoy this little discussion of Westworld and my thoughts on the first season, be sure to hit that like button down below my hands right here. And let me know what you think of the show, and I'll see you in the next one.